This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Good morning, Rabbi Isai. Bruchim Abam to the Koilel Agar de Pirka. We have a very interesting subject this morning. Of course, we're now holding in Shvuah Shechal by Tisha B'Av. I believe tonight already is Zion. So tonight already begins a more intense period of Avelus. According to the Mishnah Brura, according to Rav Moshe, one should avoid even a siyumim starting from Zion and on, because this is, according to the Gemara in Turnus, is when the Goyim entered the Heichal. Now, the Gemara tells us that many tragedies happened on Tisha B'Av, not only the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash. In fact, there's a very interesting pasuk that says, we learned it in the Haftarah, I believe, of the first of the 3 weeks. How you doing, Reb Heshi? Welcome. The pasuk says, "B'chodesh yimtza'unha." In the month they will be found, which implies that almost, as Abarbanel explains, tragedy has its way of finding itself during this time of the year. Meaning, this time of the year is sort of like a lightning rod for Jewish tragedy. And the Gemara in Turnus even says that we only have evidence that the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed the first time around on Tisha B'Av. The second time around, we have no evidence. It's not recorded anywhere. We just apply the following principle. Megalgalin chayiv liyom chayiv. In other words, we know the first Beis Hamikdash was destroyed on that day, so in all likelihood, if we don't know when the second Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, it probably happened on that day. That's just the way the Rebbeinu Shalom runs things. But the Mishnah says in Turnus, "B'Tisha B'Av nigzar al Veseinu." On Tisha B'Av, it was decreed on our forefathers, "Shlo yichnesu la'aretz," that they cannot enter Eretz Yisrael in the times of the Meraglim. "B'charav habayis v'rishoina," and the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed the first time around. "Uveshniya," and the second time around. "V'nilkada Beitar," and Beitar was conquered. "V'nechra shaha'ir," and the city was plowed. So that is an interesting tragedy. And when I say interesting, is in the scheme of things, once the temple was destroyed, and once the Goyim perpetrated what they did, of what added significance is it that the city was plowed? I mean, who cares that the city was plowed? What does it do for us to have topsoil? Oh, the topsoil was plowed, Who cares? Why is that up there on the list of tragedies of Tisha B'Av? In fact, the Gemara says in Turnus on Chavtes Tanya, "Keshacharav Turnus Rufus harasha sahechal." When Turnus Rufus destroyed the Heichal, what? He didn't destroy the Heichal. So the Masaras Hasha says Keshacharash, when he plowed the Heichal. So it's not only the ear that was plowed, but it's the Heichal as well. We say in Parakuf Lama Zayin of Tehillim, Al Narois Bavel, Al Narois Bavel. You know that song? Just checking. Okay. It's a good song, but I'm not going to sing the whole thing for you right now. But at the end of the parak it says, Zechor Hashem livnei Edoim Esyoim Yerushalayim. Remember Hashem for the children of Edom the day of Yerushalayim. What did the Bnei Edom say? Ha'oim erim. The way the song goes is Aru, Aru, but it's really, the word is Aru, Aru. It's a Millel. Anyway, it's hard to make it a Millel when you sing the song, but those are problems you have to deal with. Ad ha'yisaidva, that they would say Aru. Aru means destroy, destroy until the very foundation. So apparently, it was an ambition and a goal of the Bnei Edom not only to destroy the temple, but to dig deep down and uproot and destroy until the foundation. And the question is, why? In the Sefer Yibane Hamikdash of Rav Shlomo Brevda, he quotes the question of the Griz, the Briskarav, Lama Charash Turnus Rufus Heichal. Why did he plow the Heichal? For what purpose? What was his goal? What was he trying to accomplish? There's an interesting Ramah. There are some people, they like pillows. They like fluffy pillows. Some people, before they go to sleep, they fluff their pillows Okay, I'm not going to ask, I'm not going to put anyone on the spot what their personal practice is with their pillows, but the Ramah does say that on Tisha B'Av, Yesh b'nei Adam mesimim even tachas mirashehem. There are people who put stones under their head. Zecher l'ma shenemar, as a remembrance to that which it says, Vayikach me'avnei hamakom. And he took from the stones of the place, Shara hachorban. That Yaakov Avinu saw the Chorban. There's a concept that the Rebbeinu Shalom showed Yaakov the Chorban in his vision of the Beis Hamikdash, in his dream. You know, Vayachala Yemines Lamutzav Arza. Right? Yaakov saw the ladder. In fact, there's an interesting Chassam Sofer in Parshas Vayetze, where the Chassam Sofer wants to know where in the Psukim is there any indication Yaakov Avinu saw the Chorban. So the Chassam Sofer says that so long as the Beis Hamikdash Shel Mala is mechuven k'neged the Beis Hamikdash Shel Mata, it is impossible to destroy the Beis Hamikdash. As long as they are perfectly aligned, you cannot destroy the Beis Hamikdash. But what the Rebbeinu Shalom had to do in order to allow the Goyim to destroy the Beis Hamikdash is he had to reposition the Beis Hamikdash Shel Mala. That's the meaning of the pasuk Nier Mikdasha. He shook his Mikdash. He put his Mikdash to the side. Now the two Batei Mikdashim are not perfectly aligned, and Memela, they were able to destroy it. So the Chassam Sofer says, when Yaakov says, Ein zeh kiyim beis Elokim, all this is the Mikdash, one of the Mikdashim, but the other Mikdash Shamala has been realigned, so now, in seeing that, Yaakov Avinu saw the Chorban. Okay. So this is also a very interesting idea. We're going to come to it. I actually did put it on the sheet, so we'll come to it very soon. There's a medrash, and this is a subject we spoke about when we got to Parshas Behaloischa, that when Avram Avinu came to the Har HaBayis, for the Akedah, the pasuk says, "Vayaris hamakam merachak," he saw the place from far. So the Yalkut Shemaini says, "Metchila haya hamakam amaik." At first, the place was deep. Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu, "Ein derech hamelech lishgoin ba'emek." It is not the derech of a king to dwell in a valley. Ela b'makom me'ula, only in a premier place. In other words, when Avram Avinu came to the Akedah, he was sort of bewildered. This is where God hangs out. This is where the Rebbeinu Shalom resides. It's not the derech of a king to reside in a valley, but rather in a premier spot. Why is the Rebbeinu Shalom dwelling in a valley? He should dwell in Gavaya, V'Yafeh, V'Higbiyah HaKadosh Baruch Hu. God raised it up. L'kach nikra Har HaMoriah. That's what it's called, Har HaMoriah, Shem Miyurasai Nasahar. From the fear of God, it's sort of the surrounding area galvanized and came together and became a mountain. This is also brought in the Medrash Tanchuma. It says, "V'heich nira meirachaik." How is it seen from far? Melamed shemetchila hayamakam amayik. This teaches that in the beginning it was a deep place. Kivan shamar HaKadosh Baruch Hu lishvar shchinasei alav. When God said to dwell His Shechina there, v'lasis mikdash amar ein derech melech lishgoin be'emek. It is not the derech of a king to dwell in the valley. El b'makom gavaya u'ma'ula u'mayupa v'nira lakol. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu is merames to the surrounding area that it should gather and become a makom shechina. That's why at first it was a makom and then it became har. In fact, the Tosefta in Brachos says similarly, she'ein shechina chayzeres ad shetasa har shenemar hahara tovez avadon. Okay. Now, Vayhi b'shalem sukkah. It will be when his sukkah is complete. Matzinu kishehi shalem. We find that when it's wholesome, kruya har shenemar vayikra Avraham Shem Elokim Hashem Yireh v'oimer zechar Hashem livnei ad Edom. Remember God, the children of Edom. Me'emasai. When should you remember it? Mishenekru yisodoisem mimena. When its foundations have been uprooted. Ha'oimrim aru ad ha'yisaiba. So we see that there's some kind of connection between the fact that originally Har Moriah was deep, it then became a har, and somehow the ambition of the Goyim was to bring it back to the state of Har HaMoriah, before Avram Avinu got there. Now, one of the Zemiros that we sing on Shabbos, which was composed by one of the great Sephardic masters, Dunash ibn Labrat, who's actually cited by Rashi, we say, Elokim tein bamidbar har hadashita b'rosh tidhar v'lam. Right? You know that song? That one you know. All right, 1 for 2, not bad. But so we say like this: Elokim tein bamidbar har. God, make the desert a mountain. Hadas, the myrtle, shita, acacia, beroish, cypress, tudtar, fir, meaning make the desert flourish and grow. And this is based on the pasuk in Yeshaya, Atain ba midbar, eretz shita, I will place in the midbar, cedar, acacia, vahadas, myrtle, va'et shamen, asim ba'arava, I will make in the wilderness, beroish, cypress, tidhar, fir, usa'ashar yachtav, all these trees will grow together. So comes the Brisker Rav, and the Brisker Rav says an astounding concept and a very interesting idea. He quotes the Yalkut that we just read, that originally Hara Maria was a Makoim, it was an Emek. That's the Magen Avram wrote a Perush on the Yalkut. You know that? The Magen Avram wrote a comment on the Yalkut, it's called Zayis Ra'anan. And he says, this is Meduyak, V'lech lecha el eretz ha-Maria. Go to the land of Maria. What do you mean the land? Why not Har? That's because originally it was an eretz, it was not a Har. Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu, derech ha-machlishkam be'emek, el b'makom gavaya me'ula. Okay. B'toisefta bracha, so the Grizz quotes the Toisefta, Amru, minayin shein shchina chayzeres l'soicha ad sheteyasa har. How do I know the Shechina does not revert back into it until it becomes a mountain? Shenemar, Hahor hatoiv hazel v'havanayin. V'shamati b'shem maron hagriz mibrisk. I heard from the Brisker Rav. Shehiksha loshin Toisefta. That he asks on the language of the Toisefta. Ad sheta sahar. Until it becomes a mountain. He says, Haloi gam bizman hazel achar chom b'smigdash sedayna makam nikar har habayis. V'mkein mazeh shesheninu ad sheta sahar. What does the Tosefta mean? The Shechina will not return until it becomes a mountain, right? It says, Ein ha-Shechina chayzeres ad sheta sahar. What do you mean the Shechina won't return until it returns into a mountain? It is a mountain. What do we call it? We call it the Har Habayis. What else do you call it? So, very interesting. The Tosefta is saying God will not return until it goes back to being a mountain. V'shamati b'shem maron hagriz mibris shehiksha loshin Tosefta ad sheta sahar haloi gam bizman hazel achar mezeh. That right? V'mkein mazeh sheninu ad sheta sahar v'nei tram perek dal tainis. Then on Tisha B'Av 5 tragedies happened. It was Nigzar that we don't enter Eretz Yisrael, and the first and second Beis was and no kada beitar v'nechor Shiur. And the Gemara teaches us that Turnus Rufus plowed the Heichal, and the Rambam likewise says this day is designated for Puranos, Charash Turnus Rufus es HaHeichal. Right? We know many tragedies happened on Tisha B'Av, the Spanish Inquisition, and I remember when I was a kid, the Shabbos before my bar mitzvah, our shul burnt down on Tisha B'Av. So a lot of bad things happened on Tisha B'Av. But one of them is V'nechor Shaha'ir. Amru in the Gemara that Turnus Rufus also plowed the Heichal, and the Rambam also says, so in other words, not only did Turnus Rufus plow the ear, he also plowed the Heichal. L'kayim ha'shenemar, Tzion sada techarash. Tzion will be a plowed field. And the Grizz says, once the Romans destroyed the temple, why in the world would he do that? What did it do for him? They destroyed the temple. They burnt down the city. Right? They're machar of the Beis, they're saraf as a hechal me'izatam hichle turns over the rosh lachar as a hechal esvivav. B'amar Moran, the Grizz says Shemash me Tosefta. that even though the Beis Hamikdash may be destroyed, but it's still a makom of Hashras Hashchina. So Turnus Rufus plowed it because the Tosefta said that God will not return until it becomes a mountain again. Turnus Rufus wanted to ensure that the Shechina would never return, so he plowed it, meaning Hechriv es etzem ahar. He destroyed the actual mountain ad shenasa makoy mishar, until it became a flattened place. And about this matzav, the Tosefta states, Shakadosh Baruch Hu yachzor v'yagbia es hamakam v'yasahar, that Hashem will ultimately return and remake the mountain. It's very interesting that God will not return until He makes it a mountain again. Presumably, it's almost like the Rebbe Shalom wants it to revert back to the way it was when Avram Avinu was mispalel that it should be a mountain. We could bring a raya to this from the Yalkut that was brought in the beginning. At first it was deep. We see even from the way Avram Avinu expressed himself to the Rebbe Shalom, that Avram Avinu said it's not the derech of a king to dwell in a valley, only in a high place. It needs to be a mountain, and God raised it. And so He will do in the future, after Turnus Rufus plowed the spot, Hashem will raise it up. Says the Griz, that the pasuk says, "Etein ba'midbar eretz shita v'hadas," the eitz shaman, anoshim arava b'roish tidar usa asher yachdav. This pasuk is the basis for what Dunush ibn Labrat writes in Durar Yikra. Elokim tein ba'midbar har, God make a mountain in the desert. So next Shabbos when you sing the Zemer, you could remember the whole Shiur. You take out the sheet, you could review the whole Shiur. You can even take a picture of all the people on. You could take a picture, everybody smile. Some people might want to, remind themselves of the Shiur at the Shabbos table. Give a big smile with white teeth, I could tell even the people who are hiding behind their names, they're smiling. I could tell. Anyway, the pasuk says that Elokim tein b'midbar har, omnam l'chara tzarchiyin b'zeh. L'chara, this is curious. Ki im ha'bakasha litem b'midbar hadash shita mekara b'pasuk hanal. True, that which it says God will allow, in other words, hadas, shita, beroish, tidhar is mentioned here. Look, I'm going to make it easy for you. In the pasuk it says God will make, in the midbar, eretz, shita, hadas, eitz, shaman, beroish, tidhar, sa'asher, yachtav. So we have the hadas, and we have the shita, and we have the beroish, and we have the tidhar. If I was an ashur, sa'asher, or a eitz shaman tree, I would definitely make a movement called Eitz Shaman Matters. What happened to me in Zimra? They didn't make it in. I wonder why. But anyway, what the Brisker Rav says is that it is proven, we have substantiation, that these trees will flourish in the Midbar. However, b'mehechi teisi, that Elokim tein ba'midbar. Where is there any basis that God will make a mountain in the midbar? It doesn't say that in the pasuk. You see in this pasuk anything about mountains? Etein ba'midbar, Erez, Shita, Hadas, Eitz Sham. It doesn't say a har. So why is Dunush ibn Labrat saying Elokim tein ba'midbar har? Where did he get a mountain from? Who says God is making mountains in the midbar? That's the kasha the Brisker Rav, Amar Maran, right? Amna Mazah Shahosav Balaz Mira Savakish tein ba'midbar har. Where's the makar of such a request? Says the Brisker Rav, it's possible that the Baal HaZimra is mechaven to what we're learning. Sha'asa HaKadosh Baruch Hu l'akbiyas makam Hamikdash. God is destined to raise up the place of the Mikdash. Shecharshu Turnus Rufus Arasha. V'yasa oisai har k'dei lahashkin b'yashchinasai. ukemavor la'el, and this is what we're meschanein. Elokim tein bamidbar har v'hoisef oid maran bazeh. The Brisker Rav added. So now we understand. Turnus Rufus plowed the spot because he never wanted the Shekhinah to return. Says the Brisker Rav, the Yitachin she'inyan zen nirmaz b'kasav. Nachamu ami. This week's Haftarah. Console my people. Dabiru alev Yushalayim. Speak to the heart of Jerusalem. Kalgei yinasei. Every valley will be raised up. Shahamakayim Hamikdash shehushba yidei Turnus Rufus. That the place of the temple that was lowered through Turnus Rufus, Yinasei v'yasehar, will be raised up and will become a mountain. Now, back to the ranch, back to this inyan that originally the Makom HaMikdash was a Makom or an Eretz, and then it became a Har. So this is something we've learned before. Rav Nosson Adler in the Taras Emes. Right? Even when Yaakov Avinu came there, Vayifka b'makom. This is Mamish Oyon v'Noira. Vayifka b'makom. Yaakov saw the makom. Remember we asked before, where does the Ramah get that Yaakov saw the Churban? Amar Chazal Shira Churban. Ayin Haga Mordechai. Maybe Mayid Katan of Ramah Hilchos Tishvav. Yesh b'nei Adam Shem Siman Eben Tachas Roshim Zechar Lama Shenemar. Vayikach me'avnei hamakoim. V'chormas v'ez rosh, shenemar ma'noira hamakoim hazeh. Ask Rav Nosson Adler, where do Chazal derive that Yaakov saw the Churban? Says Rav Nosson Adler, because it says Vayifka ba'makoim, ma'noira hamakoim. What do you mean hamakoim? It's not a makoim, he's on the Har HaBayis. Why is he seeing a makoim? Why is he seeing an amoik? Avram Avinu already transformed it into a har. Because the Makom in the Beis Hamikdash was at first Rak Eretz Mishar. The Nikra Makom Kamashanemar Vayar Es Hamakom Meirachik. The Avram Avinu Olav Hashalom Bikesh. Avram Avinu requested Asher Yeyomar Olav Hayom Behar Shem Yira'eh V'Nasahar. But by the Churban it says Aru Ada Yisoidba, that the Romans destroyed it until the foundation and they made it a makam. Lekach nasa shav makom. Lekach amar chazal vayifka ba'makom shira churban. Amazing. That's how we know that he saw the churban, because he didn't say vayifka bahar, vayifka ba'makom. Mamish oyam v'nor v'zeh muvan gam kein ma'shamar chazal. This is what chazal means. Shashaka loichama shaloi ba'oinasa. That the sun set prematurely. Al pi ma shekasav shetzedaka asa kazrach liso sheiktem achurban beis shanim kaidem leveshinanthem. We know that the Rebbeinu Shalom brought the Churban 2 years prematurely, because Hashem did not want us to be in Eretz Yisrael. How many years? 7, 852 years. Because if we would be in Eretz Yisrael, Kaminyan v'noi shantem, then it would have to be fulfilled in us, v'avadetem mehera, k'dei shaloi yet chay, k'dei shaloi yis. What does that say? What? Oh, k'dei shelo yiskayim. Thank you. So it should not be fulfilled. It's I think it's quoting the wrong pasuk. It's a typo. Va'avadetem mehera. Oh no. So that v'ibadetem will not be fulfilled. So let's think about that for a moment. By the way, there's a famous Rashi. The pasuk says v'naishantem, that Hashem exiled us 2 years early, because if we would have been in Eretz Yisrael 852, we would have had to be destroyed. So the famous question is, we were gypped out of a year. If we were allowed to be if we couldn't be in Eretz Yisrael 852, we should have stayed there 851 years and then left before 852. So the Trumas Hadeshin says, from here we learn that, but when it comes to Gematria, you could be one off. And if we would have been there 851, then it would have had to be Niskayim v'Yavadetem Mehera. Anyway, Uve geula nikra b'shem shemesh. We know this. The geula, the redemption, is called and is symbolized by the sun. So the premature setting of the sun symbolized the premature galus. And this is what it means. Sheshaka chama shaloi ba'anasa, 2 years early. Now I want to share with you the Chassam Sofer that we referenced before. And that is that that Chazal say that Yaakov Avinu saw the Churban. We're in this pasuk. We're in these psukim. Is there any reference that Yaakov saw the Churban? So Rav Nosson Adler says it's alluded to in Vayivka B'Makoim. The Tairas Moshe, the Chassam Sofer says it's alluded to elsewhere. In Kinus for Tisha B'Av, and whoever finds this for me will get a prize. Okay, bli neder, you're going to get something, I don't know what, a jelly bean, something really good. Okay, who could find Sar Bekinus L'Tisha B'Av Isa Sar Shimumoi Vayakoinen Ein Zeh. The officer, he desolated and he lamented Ein Zeh V'Tzarech Bir Eich Ef Shelikroi Zeh Kina. What's the kina here? V'nira deveicha nemar nier Hashem mikdashai. God shook His mikdash. Haya hasoinim yichem lavi lemikdash Hashem kozman shayim muchum l'keneg beis hamikdash shamala. The soinim cannot come to the Beis Hamikdash so long that it was aligned with the Beis Hamikdash shamala ad shanir Hashem mikdashai, until God shook His mikdash shalo yiyeh mechuvan, that it should not be aligned. Az haya efshar lahem lishloit bayad. Then it was possible for them to have dominion. The Kanpir, so this is very interesting. Chassam Sofer is teaching us that for the Goyim to be able to destroy the temple, the two temples, Shalmala and Shamat, had to be disaligned. Here Rashi says that Har HaMoriah jumped toward Yaakov Avinu. That means only the Mikdash Shalmata jumped to him. The Mikdash Shalmala remained in its place. That's how Yaakov saw the Churban. Because the Beis Hamikdash Shamala is here, the Beis Hamikdash Shamata is here, but the Beis Hamikdash Shamata jumped to him. The Isa b'Yuma, we find in the Gemara in Yuma, Daniel lo yamar Hashem noira. Daniel did not say noira. The Goyim meraktim hechaloi v'ayinarosav. The Goyim are prancing and dancing in the Hechal. Where is God's awe? The Anshin Gazagdo tikno lo yamar noira. Anshin Gazagdo were masangin yes to say noira. Shehin he noirosav. That this is in fact the very awe of God, that Hashem is able to withdraw His anger at a moment like this. V'yesh loymar. You could say, this is what Yaakov Avinu meant. Man noira hamakam hazeh. B'lashoin baye kedaniel aye noira oisav. Ma noira hamakam hazeh. Ma, meaning the same way Daniel asked, where is God's fear? So Yaakov Avinu said, Ma noira makam hazeh. Where's the noira? Why? What happened to the noira? Because ein zeh kiyim beis Elokim. Because this is only the Mikdash Shamala, but the Mikdash Shamala is out of place. L'kach amar pa'amayim ein zeh v'zeh shar hashamayim. He said a double negative. This is not, but this is the shar hashamayim. Mikdash hatachton shenetam mimakoymai. And therefore it's a kinna. This is what the kinna means. Isa sar shimumai vaykoinen ein zeh. Ve'evshir sharamaz gamkein kan Tisha B'Av. This is one of my favorites. So that means Yaakov saw the Churban. Because as Rav Nosson Adler says, Vayifka b'makoim. He saw it as a makoim. And he says, Ein zeh kiyim beis Elokim v'zeh shar shamayim. What's the lashon? He says, Manora hamakoim hazeh. Manoira, where's the noira? Because the Beis Hamikdash Shamata moved away from the Beis Hamikdash Shamala, so there's no more noira, and that's how it was able to be destroyed. everybody know Yaakov Avinu was a big masmid. Did Yaakov Avinu ever go to sleep at night? Chazal say many times, 14 years he didn't sleep at night. When was the first time Yaakov Avinu slept at night? Vayivka ba'amakoim vayolan sham balayla vayishkav ba'amakoim hahu. He slept in that place. Vayishkav ba'amakoim. He slept there. Rashi says, Malamed shiudalet shana shahaya bebeis ever lo shachav. The 14 years he was in Beis Ever, he did not sleep at night. So why wasn't Yaakov learning that night? I don't understand. He was such a big masbid. He spent 14 years without going to sleep at night. So why did he have to sleep that night? If he was able to learn 14 consecutive years, why did he have to learn that? You know why? Because what was that night? It was Tisha B'Av. And you're not to learn on Tisha B'Av. That's why Yaakov Avinu wasn't learning that night. The Efshir Sharamaz Gamken Kan Tisha B'Av, Rashi says, Vayishka B'Makamahu, but the 14 years that he was in Beis Ever, Loi Shachav, he was Osak B'Torah. Why didn't he learn Torah tonight? It's because it was Tisha B'Av, and now we have a deeper understanding of why we put the stone under our pillow. If anybody needs rocks for Tisha B'Av night, please call me after the Shiur, and I'll be happy to supply stones, rocks of whatever size you happen to want. And just as a good business advice, if anybody wants a side gig, selling stones for Tisha B'Av, as far as I know, in most Judaica stores, they've managed to market almost everything. You could even buy a box to put your yarmulke in. Okay, I'm sure you don't have that yet. You have a talis baitel and you have tefillin box, but you don't have a yarmulke box. But this is uncharted territory. Rocks for Leil Tisha B'Av. Why? Because Yaakov Avinu saw the Churban, but he didn't just see the Churban. He actually, according to Sam Sofer, it's possible to suggest it was Tisha B'Av, and that's why he wasn't learning. Okay. But let's just take it a little bit further here. And let's point out one more item. There's a Mishnah in Avodah Zarah. Amar Rabbi Kiva, Ani oivin va'adin lefanecha. I want to tell you something, Rabbi Kiva says. Kamakim shata moitze har gavoya v'giva nesa. Anytime you see a tall mountain and a lofty hill, ve'etz ranon and a leafy tree, da sheyesh sham avodas koichavim. You should know there is Avodah Zarah there. Rabbi Kiva is revealing that every single spot in Israel, every mountain in Israel was a makam Avodah Zarah. So Tosfos in Avodah Zarah quotes the question of the Yushalmi. Frak Tosfos b'Yushalmi parach mi Beis HaBechira. The Yushalmi asks, what about the Beis Hamikdash? And you know what the Yushalmi answers? In other words, the question is, how could they build the Beis Hamikdash? But Rabbi Kiva is saying every single mountain is a makam Avodah Zarah. So how could they build the Beis Hamikdash on a mountain, on Hara Maria? And the answer is, Umasik al pi navi navna sham. It was built based on the prophet. Comes Rav Nosson Adler. We were zocher to be at his kever in Frankfurt exactly a year ago, right after Tisha B'Av. Vayaras hamaka merachik. Ayin medrash that he saw originally, it was only a makaim, amoik, and not a har. And Avram Avinu was mispalel that it's not covered for Hashem to dwell on the Amek, and it became a har. And this is what it means. V'hainu asher ye'omar hayoim, today, b'har Hashem yirah. Says Rav Nosson nearly hatam. Shaloi have a hamar amir b'tchilas v'yasek. Says Rav Nosson, could someone please tell me, why didn't God just make Hara Maria when He made the Canadian Rockies and the Mount Everest and the Catskills, all the big mountains in the world? Why didn't God make Hara Maria? Why do you have to make it later? The answer is because in Avodah Zarah it says any mountain in Eretz Yisrael they served Avodah Zarah, and we know that even though if you worship karka, it does not become asur, but it becomes asur legavaya. So the goyim, by serving the mountain, would have rendered it a makam avodah zarah. Based on what we paskin, that there is considered an isur nevad if something is attached to the ground to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, then they would not be able to build a Beis Hamikdash. But look in Tosfos, who quotes this question from the Yerushalmi. And the Yerushalmi answers it was built based on the Navi. What that means is like this: V'hashta Yishloimer, all the mountains that they built Avodah Zarah and they worshipped before Avram Avinu was machzik in Eretz Yisrael, their taka asur to build a Beis Hamikdash on. Meaning, all the Goyim, the Oivdei Avodah Zarah they hit every mountain in Eretz Yisrael before Avram Avinu was machzik Eretz Yisrael. But Har HaMoriah was not a mountain; it was deep, it was an emek, and they didn't put Avodah Zarah there because it's not a har. And then, so you'll say fine, but once it became a har, they worshipped Avodah Zarah. No, Ad Achar Shenas Har Aidei Tfilos Avram Avinu. Avram Avinu made it a mountain. V'oz kvar nitin lo eretz, and then it was given, the land was given to him, and it was niskadish v'kedushas Beis Hamikdash. Ve'ein adam oiser davar she'enoi shaloi. How do you like that? Rashi Tevis. Ein adam oiser davar she'enoi shaloi. That's a good one. That's a good trivia. What does Aleph, 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 Dalet, Shin, Aleph, Shin stand for? Now, we know that David HaMelech Shalom, that there's a principle that there's no mountain and you can't build a Beis Hamikdash on a Makayim. It's not the covet for the king to be shoichin in an emek, and therefore David HaMelech says in Tehillim as follows: Ribbon Shema, I don't know where to build a house for you. To build it on a mountain, I can't because it was worshipped Avodah Zarah. To build it on a Makayim, it's not covered. So we have this catch-22. A Makayim is not covered. A har is a Makayim Avodah Zarah. So David HaMelech says like this in Kuf Lamed Beis. Im atein shnas la'inai. Right, David HaMelech says, Im avoi ba'oyal beisi. Im e'ele al eres yitzuai. Im atein shnas la'inai. Li'af apai tenuma. I won't sleep. Ad Emsa Makayim LaHashem, until I find a Makayim for Hashem. That it should be Mishkanos Avir Yaakov, that for this you need a har and not a Makayim. So therefore we need to find a Navi. Could some Navi tell me, please, tell me about a mountain that was originally a Makayim? And then it became a har. And by the way, the Chassam Sofer quotes this Yerushalmi and the Tosfos, and he quotes Moiri Hagoyin HaChosid Shebekahuna Marina Rav Nosson Adler Koyin Tzedek, who says this pshat. And the Chassam Sofer quotes in Arachaim Siman Reish Ches and Yordei Siman Reish Lamed Gimel. By the way, who else says this? Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshitz. We were at his kever as well. But Yikra Avram Shem Magam Hu Hashem Yireh Asher Yomar Hayom Bahar Hashem Yireh Nira Lefaresh, based on the Medrash that originally was a Bika, and then when Avram Avinu came, he made it into a mountain. By the way, it just got me thinking, this is what it means, says Rabbi Yonasan. V'zeh shamar Avram Hashem yira'eh ha'ratzayin. Hashem will show the goodwill. Shiyah Beis Hamikdash asher bo yira Hashem rak sheyikshe echi tachin shiyah Beis Hamikdash bahar ha'ro'ein lecha har shavdu. And the answer is asher yomer hayoim. This that it's a har was neschadesh hayoim. So according to Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshitz, the pasuk itself is bothered by the question. Hashem yira'eh, Hashem will show the will that the Beis Hamikdash will be in this spot. By the way, the Rebbe of Heschel, of Krakow, in the Chanukas HaTorah, he also says the same idea based on the Gemara in Avodah Zarah and the Tosfos over there. So my Rabbi said, it got me thinking that when it comes to the Har HaBayis, not only think how absurd it is for our cousins to claim the Har HaBayis for themselves, because not only was it a mountain promised to Avram Avinu, it didn't even exist before Avram Avinu was mispalel that it should be the makayim for the Hashras HaShechina. It was created through the very tefillos of Avraham Avinu. And now we understand why the worst tragedy of all was Turnus Rufus plowing the Makam Hamikdash. Because it sounds like, so long as it was a mountain, even though the temple was destroyed, at least the Shechina could reside there. But the Tosefta says, Ein Shechina chayzeres ad shetiyas har. The Shechina won't return until it becomes a mountain. So Turnus Rufus, who wants to prevent the Shechina from ever returning, uprooted it to its very core to make sure that Hashem would never return. And in a way, this is the greatest tragedy of all. Because not to have a Beis Hamikdash, at the end of the day, it's a bias. But not to have the Shechina, that is the most painful ramification of the Churban. And therefore, every Shabbos, we are mispalel. Not only Elokim Tain, Hadas, Shita, Baroish Tidar, not only make the deserts of Yerushalayim flourish, but most importantly, Elokim Tain, Bamidbar Har, God rebuild the mountain on the Har Habayis, on the Makayim. So it started off as a Makayim, and Avram Avinu was mispalel, became a Har. Yaakov Avinu saw the Churban when Vayivka Ba'Makayim, and when he said Manoira HaMakayim Hazeh, and it was ultimately destroyed by Turnus Rufus, and we are mispalel Elokim Tain Bamidbar Har. We should be zoicha to see the Makayim be a suitable resting place for the Shechina. So this is our last year before Tisha B'Av. Of course, everyone's welcome to join us every day at 5 o'clock. It's very Geshmak Alimud. Could also join us Wednesday morning. There will be a Shiur, or any Monday and Tuesday night is the Daf HaShavua at 9:15 or 9:25, depending on the night. Okay, Rabbi, thank you for coming, and have a great day. Shkoyach.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.